4. Avoiding SQL injection. So all through this, I have been harping on how the way I do it is the right way, and that there is a wrong way. And we should think about a wrong way of what, and what is the consequence of doing it the wrong way. So the good news about avoiding SQL injection is that's what we've been doing all along. The bad news is that to many programmers, it's a very, very tempting trap to fall into. So let me just go to see why. So first of all, we have this code. So this code, I mean, it's relatively okay. Once we get into having 3, 4, even more question marks, it starts to become a bit annoying to write this insert statement, .set string, whatever. There are things that can go kind of wrong because you get the number wrong and so on. So in general, it's not the greatest thing ever. But it's better than the alternative that most people come up with. Because most people look at that and go, prepare statement gets a string. I know strings. Java knows strings. I can work with a string. I have string.format. I have plus. I can work with strings. And that deserves this credit. Because this solution is definitely neat and plausible. And I also want to show you that the solution is wrong. So, this is the solution I'm talking about. Right. You're trying to create the right string. What is the right string? Well, you have it in the box down there. This is the string we're trying to create if the author is Franz Kafka. So how do we do that? Well, the first part of the string up to and including the first quote is always the same. The last 2 characters, always the same. And then the middle is just the author name. And that's exactly what we're doing with this insert into. Right. We have the first string there is always the same. Then we put the author name. And then the last string is the 2 characters that are always the same. Does this work? Yes, this works. There's no problem if the author is Franz Kafka. However, I found another author. Here's Thomas O'Malley. He's not the only person in the world, by the way, with an apostrophe in his name. And typically we're going to see this apostrophe being used the same as a quote. So what happens when I put in Thomas O'Malley? Let's look at the string at the end. It is the same string except it says Thomas O'Malley instead of Franz Kafka. But look at the quotes, the 3 red quotes. So you wanted to put a string in those braces. But Thomas O is the string. Then comes Malley, which is, I mean, it doesn't belong there. It's no longer SQL, but it's not part of the string. It's part of something else. We are no longer in the string. We are in the SQL part. So this is just illegal SQL. Also, at the end, you have an unmatched string, and that's not great. So it will refuse to take that, and you'll get an SQL exception. It's a bug. Unfortunately, sometimes bugs are also security risks, and I'm not going to go through all the ways this can be a security risk. I'm just going to show you the worst. This. That's not an author name. This is not something anybody would write by accident. This is something written by an attacker who wants to destroy you. This is vandalism, pure and simple. And it's probably not easy to see exactly what that string does. But remember, we are doing what we're doing down there with insert into author names, values, blah, blah, blah. We have this pesky quote in there. So you can see I'm up to something that's similar to the Thomas O'Malley problem. That quote, as before, ends the string. And then what comes? Well, I think I should show you the entire string. Also, I took the liberty of putting in some line breaks that are not there. The database doesn't care, so I just put them in for readability. So, first of all, that's the kind of the code you thought you wrote, except that last quote there is not yours. That's what the user put in, the attacker. Right. So, again, the attacker put everything from A and forward. So, A quote, end parenthesis semicolon. Note how the attacker just managed to make a perfectly valid SQL statement that ends in a semicolon, which for most databases means it's now time for a new statement. So he's out of the quote. That's of the string. That's the important part. He has put in an end quote. He's no longer in the string. He is writing SQL. What SQL does he write? Well, it's up to him, right? That's the problem. Because he's done that, we are going to perform any SQL he writes in the next line, and you never want to do that. And in worst case, he's going to write that. Drop the entire schema, meaning delete the entire database. Your application no longer has a database, or it has no data. And then, just to make sure that this is still valid SQL, because you add something at the end, right? He puts the dash dash. A clever trick. That means that it's a comment. So he doesn't necessarily have to care too much about what you put at the end. I think he knows what you put at the end, but it doesn't matter. He just comments it out, and whatever you put at the last string doesn't matter any longer. So this is vandalism. There are some databases have stopgap maneuvers to avoid this. But there are other attacks you can do with this. You can log in as anybody at any time. So that's still quite bad. So in general, this is not what you want to do. You don't want to try to create a full SQL statement by plotting things together. We don't do that. We do the other thing. You might be thinking, that's certainly what I was. I was thinking I can fix that. Now, I didn't know it was a security issue at the time. I just knew it was a bug. I knew about O'Malley and said, okay, I can fix that. But that's not what you do. That's never what you do. If you have a security problem, you don't fix it. You apply a fix that a real expert has made. And I'm saying real expert. I mean, somebody is paying. If somebody is paying you to be a security expert and they're paying you for your expertise, sure, go ahead. Until then, you just apply what other people have thought up. And that's it. And in this particular case, what other people have thought up is use question marks in your SQL and use set string, set int, set double, what have you, to fill them out afterwards. Because that works. There is no way you can get SQL injection attacks if you do that. We may not even know why, but that's what we have security experts for. We just know that this works. So I'll just leave you with this comic that is by now mandatory when you talk about SQL injection. Also, you should probably check out XKCD if you don't know it yet. And I hope this has helped. I hope the entire series have helped. I know you hope you understand why you don't want to risk SQL injection for a bit of convenience. And in general, happy coding.